Okay, so as you can see, we are back on hand painting with the actual Y-wing. So the first colour that we've got going down in here, you can probably see these picked out onto this one. I'm going with the LP-61, which is basically metallic grey. It's the darkest metallic I've actually got. So we're going to start with the dark and we'll work to the lightest. So what I'm doing is I've taken some cues from obviously some references, bits and pieces, but a lot of this is me. And I'm just putting down, so we've done a few, so we've got this grill area at the front, we've got these down in here, and these got pipe work is going to go into it, and the pipe work is going to be dark as well, so that's why we've done that. And we're just working our way around, and you can probably see over the tops of the engines, sides of the engines, things like that, underneath here as well. So we got these which are clearly rocker covers from something, I think a Super Marine engine. Down in here, so we've done those, a few of these bits down the back, say a little bit of heavy piping work down on here onto the engines and just roughly around it, all right, just to give it a little bit of, you know, colour coming through and to start to break it all up, and that's what we need to do with this one. So with that colour on, then we're going to make our way through with a few other colours. So say darkest one out the way first, and then we're going to work our way through with the next one. We're going to come up here, so we've got some Super Iron 2, which is really like a dark iron colour. That's quite nice, and we'll just then work through the sort of more lighter tones, and then we've actually got a titanium, so we've got that nice goldy colour titanium, and then last up we've just got a normal sort of stainless steel, which is a nice sort of metal-y type colour, you know, that's sort of very much a lighter colour, and we can just do some areas on here. All right, so we're just generally working our way around it all, and we will pick out some of these little details on the top here as well. So we'll hand paint in these panels, perhaps some of these squares, not all of them, but some of them. And again, if you wanted to, you could think about maybe changing over one. I know a lot of people pick out this particular panel here and just give it an entire new metal look to it and stuff like that. Don't think we're going to go that far, but we can go through. So again, it's quite long, like laborious going through painting all of these details in like this, but I think by the time we get a lot of these done, it will start to help just break it up again. So again, there's a lot of sort of you know, copies around, so obviously that's what I'm doing on here. But again, these down in here, you know, obviously we can do these all roughly the same colour as well. So we're trying to do little repeaters, and I've already done one of the silvery ones down in here. It's like a bottle, so we've done those down in here, and we're just going around picking out all these individual colours right the way over. It's just going to make it a little bit more sharper, if you like, to look at, because we're in a bigger scale. When we're dealing like this is one of those ones where you really need to get in and have a look to actually see all the details onto it. All right, with this one, because it's bigger, you can see it more, so we need to pick out more individual items than you would do on something smaller, and that's just a scale effect thing. Obviously, if you did it the weathering exactly the same as we did for this, it just wouldn't work, because this would look like a big brick, like a toy. So we need to break it up, and obviously we can break it up with the use of just subtle changes in colours all the way over it. When we're doing in World War II aircraft, we might come through and we do various things in there, as in like literally fading centres of panels, perhaps changing certain panels and things like that. With this, it's a little bit different because it's sci-fi, it doesn't really weather like that. So what we're trying to do is just do entire different blocks of colour changes on different items, as if it's been made up with a hodgepodge of all different things. Perhaps it doesn't get like a paint coat all the way over it because it has been replacement. Obviously in our sci-fi extended universe as well, you have to think about how perhaps it would work in that type of environment. And again, lots of replacement parts, obviously coming from other vehicles, from other ships, things like that, being bolted onto this one. They might be different colours, they might be completely metal, they might be old worn out bits, and you can put them all onto it. But what you're doing by putting all these different layers on is creating depth. And the bigger the scale you go, the more depth you need. And again, this is one of those things, if you was to do this again as a 4-foot monster, you'd have to do even more stages to it to get that sort of effect of being weathered and looking good and something else like that. All right, so again, just going to take our time, going to do 3 more little bits of hand painting all the way through. There's not a lot of point showing you these, to be honest, because it's just long and laborious. All right, and then once we've got all of that done, we can come together and we can actually think about dry brushing and getting a wash onto it. Okay, so we finished off doing all the painting. We went through those colours, and you can see now they are all on there and taken, you know, really, really well. And it picks out some nice details in amongst here. So you can see the bits over here. You can see the bits now down in there. We got some on the sides as well. We got them on the engines, and we got them underneath and all the rest of it. And it's actually looking all very, very nice indeed. We've also done that cockpit colour. I've gone for a more white shade than we did the others, because the other ones we had a little bit of grey in there, things like that. It just mutes it down. This one we've gone white, so I'm trying to just get a little contrast all the way through. And again, in my head, it's this thing about replacement parts, cannibalism, things like that. So that's why it would have that type of thing. We can obviously at any point go for more weathered effect. We can put on new panels, we can put on distressed panels afterwards once it's in. But what we want to do now is basically get an oil wash over this. Now, I know in the past, I've used things like inks. I know when we did the Y-wing, we used a pre-made one and all the rest of it. Roughly, it's the same type of technique all the way through. But now, of course, we've got this, which is Starship Filth. All right, so this is your Starship Filth. So it's ABT510. All right, so it's part of the fantasy range. What this basically means is it's got a slightly green hue to it. All right, so what we've got is a little pot, as you can see. So we've got a little thing here. We're going to give this a good amount, because to be honest, we're going to need quite a bit of this. So we're probably going to need, I think there's a 10mm jars in here. We're probably going to need at least 5 to 10mm of this to do a model of this size. So again, what you could do, if you've got some old jars kicking around, you could actually just keep this already knocked up and all the rest of it. All right, so we've got a jar full down in there. Then we're going to take a generous blob of the Starship Filth. So we've got around about this amount on here. All right, so we've got about that on there. And then we're going to pop this in here. What is that at the bottom? All right, there's already something in the bottom of that one already. So that's obviously where I haven't cleaned out the jar very well. Let me just tip this into a clean one. Because again, there's something in there and I don't want to contaminate anything. And then we're going to go with this into here. I'm going to give this a good mix, and it's going to take quite a bit to break this down. All right, so get in there, give it a good mix. Now this color has got a primary color is like a green snot. But it's very, very, very dark. So you can use it for shadows and everything else, but seeing as it's Starship color, I thought what a better way to do it than on something on this. So usual thing, when you're brushing it down the side, you just want to see a shadow. So it's not looking thick or anything else, but what you want to do is make sure it's got a really, really good mix in here, because obviously what you want it to do is to go on nice and smooth and not granulate. If it goes granularly and all gritty and stuff like that, it's not going to work well. Because of the amount of lumps and bumps and things on the model and all these sharp edges, it's going to be really difficult to blend because of those lumps and bumps. All right, so we'll just see this one, see how this goes to start with. So to start off with, let's do this little nacelle just on the side here. We're just going to come in, we're going to test an area. So again, we want it to be quite faint. And we're just going to come over and brush it on. And obviously what we're looking for is this type of detail now to sort of pop. Yeah, so again, that's why we're in. And we're literally going to go everywhere right the way over this. And again. And just work it into all the nooks and crannies, and so it'll sort of self-level. Now we're not trying to change anything here. We're not trying to actually, you know, change the color or anything else. We're just trying to give shadowing around things. All right, so that's what we do. So we're going to come a little bit over the front here. We're going to come right the way over the front of the nacelle. We've got all of these little very much lumpy bumpy bits to get round and get it all in and all these things, but also we're going to go everywhere, because this is going to be the grime dirt layer effect to all of this. So as we're going down, we're going to come down and we're going to keep it somewhat level, but we are going to go into all the nooks and crannies. Now, one thing to remember, obviously when you're doing things like this, is that super glue doesn't actually, or isn't actually I should say, a fan of this type of working material, as in enamel thinners. All right, so we've got quite a bit on here, so don't flood it. What happens is if this floods and sits on it too long, what can happen is it will literally dissolve the super glue. So anyway, down in there, then we're going to come across here. And we're just going to wear this in. And if you get an area, it's a little bit too dark, say this bit area in the middle, all right, then just come along with your brush and you can absorb it and take it away. And you can maneuver it around to other areas. And again, this isn't a one and done. We can actually play with this, we can manipulate it, we can pull it round, we can come in with different shades, darker, heavier amounts of it. There's lots of different variables with this. All right, so again, there we go. So that's done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the entire top side, and then we're going to let it dry, because what I don't want this to do is to start to run and build up in different areas. I want this to dry nice and level, and then we'll move it onto its back, and we'll do the back, and then we'll do the sides. But we want it to sort of all flow into the nice areas. All right, so again, we're just coming down in here. And this is why when we were picking the colour, how we had to be a little bit mindful about how and what shades of colour we'd use. So we didn't want to go too dark, because we knew full well as soon as we come along with this, everything's going to go a little bit darker. So you might want to add just a little bit more wash into areas which have got lots of shadow. So areas down in the middle here, you've got quite a, a area fill, so you can get right in amongst that quite easily. Okay, so that's all looking quite good. Then we're going to come across here. I'm just going to pop it in. And most of this will just run off naturally, and it will self-level and sort itself out. And again, it's a spaceship, so you think it would, but like up in here, I've sort of deliberately done it. We've put it a little bit too much, so we'll just take some away, brush it into some other areas. Again, so we can actually pull it out. Or some areas you might feel like down in here, I want it quite dark, so I'm going to add a little bit more into those areas. All right, always keep mixing, because it will separate. The colors will separate. You can have problems with the separation. All right, so we're just going to come along. It's going to come down in here, and to be honest, that's looking really, really nice already. So again, all we're doing, making sure we've got no clean spots. All right, so again, if you do see a little bit of white or something sticking out, then just pop along a little bit on your brush, and you can get rid of that. So we get down in here, and we're just going to get all these details to absolutely pop. All right, so again, we've got in here, if I move this over, see these areas here, just a little bit too much. So again, we just take our brush, we'll take some of that away, and we're just going to work it into other areas. So if you've got a little bit too much sitting on there, you can just manipulate it, and you can maneuver it around. But you can see now already how we got a really nice starship type colour now coming onto this one, and that's exactly what we want. So what we're going to do, we're just going to flip this around. All right, and we're going to do this other nacelle now, same as we did all the others. Again, it's just that thing, taking your time and methodically as well, working your way through all the areas, because we want to be quite methodical with this so we don't miss anything, because the last thing you want to do is come along and then do all of this and you're like, ah, hold on, got a clean spot. So again, we're just going to come down in here, a little bit over these, plenty of grime, just a little bit just down in here. Again, that's actually all looking pretty good, but again, we've got this area, now you start to get worried because you can't grab it in many places because it's wet. You probably see these areas at the back, so we're just going to pop in with a brush, take it away, look for some other areas that could do with a little bit more, suck this away, so it's nice and smooth. And that's what we want. All right, so again, go for it. So what I'm going to do is, this is going down pretty well, to be honest. We're just going to pop some over this engine nacelle here. And again, yeah, we're taking a little bit more care on the top because this is where everyone's going to see. So we're not too worried about other areas where perhaps people might not see. But down in here, we definitely are. All right, so again, just getting some down in there. Just trying to keep it all nice and smooth. And again, once this is dry, you can come in and you can layer up and go layer after layer after layer. So last up down in here, we're going to go around the cockpit. So again, just going to lay this on. I'm going to let naturally, it will draw and it will pull and it will build up on certain areas. I'll move this down here so you can see it a little bit more. So again, and I know there's that argument about spaceships don't get dirty because there's no atmosphere in space, but don't forget, these little ships go on the ground as well. So they actually fly to the surface of very horrible, gnarly planets, I would assume. And so they are going to get dirty and they are going to get gnarly and grimy and all these different things, you know. So that's why we're causing this type of effect. Again, we're just trying to keep it as even as we can. You can see how this dries. It will dry naturally in the panel lines, which will obviously bring the panel lines to life. So that's good. But again, if we was to turn this over, what would happen is it would then start to fall and it would want to run away in different areas and things like that. Well, obviously we don't want that. Okay, so as you can see, the oils are now on, and wow, turned out very, very nicely. Now I don't want to handle this too much purely because it is wet. That's why I've got it on a turntable here, but there we go. That's it looking. You can see on the underside how much better that is actually looking, and down the sides now it really makes the details pop, and that front end looking really nice as well. Some of the interesting weathering we've got on there, and that's just the oils laying on there doing their own thing. All right, so immediately it makes all the details absolutely pop. And again, if we have a bit of a closer look now, you can see exactly what's going on. But down here on the front, you can see, so actually what we've done to achieve this is we took the front end off and then just stood it on its end vertically. So it's collected a little bit as it was draining down, it's collected in these panel lines and all these areas. And again, same on the underside. You can see where it's just collecting naturally and going through. So again, looking very much part, but there you go. There's an area where technically we've missed a bit. So again, that's the thing about getting it all in one, but really, really happy of how that's turned out now. All right, so again, the big thing with oils is you can't really touch it. They're going to be soft and they're going to wipe away for the next probably 24 hours minimum. What I'm going to do is leave this for a good couple of days, probably 3 or 4 days for that to really dry back. Then we're going to come back and we're going to dry brush it with just a clean brush. This way it will just blend some of the colours then and make them more natural and going really nicely. Then we're going to blend it with a little bit of oils as well, so we can actually put in some various details into this one, get those all embodied into it as well and get all those in amongst it. Then we're going to come back in with a little bit of chipping technique so we can get some chipping work onto this one. We'll be doing lots of that right the way over, and some post shading. Once that's in, I think that's enough for what we're going to be doing for sort of, you know, needing to get in amongst it all. Then we can actually get all the pipe work on. With the pipe work on, we can do final weathering, a little bit more oils onto it, neat and wet, getting those in and really start to bring it to life. Okay, so now with the oil wash completely dried on this, as you can probably see, looking very nice. We've got this nice sort of paneling up at the front, which has worked very, very nicely. All right, and again, hopefully you won't fall out. On the underside, you can see, and hopefully you can see, the oil wash has just worked, just grimed everything down, and it's given it a little bit more shadow features right the way through to all of this now. So where we picked out some of the hand details of the painting, it's really starting to pop and come back to life. All right. So with that done, it means that we can actually get in with some more of the detailed stuff, because trying to put a wash around plumbing and stuff like that, it's just an absolute nightmare. So the plumbing itself does come as a 3D file, and if you wanted to, you could just print it off and you could put it all in there. Drawback to that is obviously with 3D printed tubes, they have to be supported, and because they're supported means that they are, you know, inevitably very, very sort of fragile when you try and sand them and clean them up. Think of the sprue attachment points and things like that. So you could obviously just not worry about it too much and just sort of get on with it. And again, I've got them on a file, we can just print them off. To be honest, they look a little bit like this. Which looks a little bit like this. There we go. All right, so you can see exactly where they all are and the ones we want and everything else like that. All right, but to be honest with you, we've got a little trick up our sleeve, so we can use cord plasticard. So cord plasticard is literally this stuff. So instead of it just being standard plastic tubes like this one, which is hollow, if you was to bend this, I won't do it because I've already pre-cut this one, but it won't hold, it will just ping back or it will snap. But obviously with this one, we've got the ability, if we want to, is just to bend it, and you can come along and bend it to any shape you want and it will hold its own core, all right, or its own sort of lines and things like that, which is great for when you're doing something on this. Now what I'm also doing is I'm using the Bandai one as well for references, so I can look around and see exactly what it needs to be and the angles we need and everything else like that. All right, so for the moment what we're doing is we're taking the Bandai one, looking at all the different pipes on here, and we're following along of how they actually are, and we've got our references on the screen. So as you can see, we've already done some little bending, all right, and we've got some little angles and various things coming on here. So we've decided to pick out the main ones, if you like. So the ones to start off with, this isn't cord, it's actually hollow, all right, and that's the ones that are running across here. And again, you can probably see, if I detach the head, just to make it a bit easier to work with, you can probably see there is holes for it to go into and everything else like that. So it does make it quite easy. So we can just come along then and obviously poke one end in a hole like this. And then we could poke the other one in. And then we've got those in there just like that, all right? And again, for other ones, and if I make one of these up here, so what we've actually got is a situation where I'm actually going to make another one of these. I'll do it for you. So this has got a kink in it because it comes up over the wing. And if I just poke one end in one hole, okay, and then we just poke one in the other. It needs to be just trimmed down a little bit, and it's going to fit in across down in here. They're all going to be painted yet, so don't worry. Then we've got another one that's going to come across in here. But if I do the one for this side, you can see how we go about bending it and things like that. So obviously, to start with, we can just pop it in the said hole. We know roughly where it is. I've got a pair of these, and this has got various sizes for actually bending it round. But for this first one, we just need a small amount. So we're just going to put in like a 45-degree bend in there. All right, then we're coming back and we keep it flat facing upwards, and we're just going to bend it down again. That gives us our, roughly, there we go, our bend like this. So now if we come in, we can check it. So it just goes in the hole. All right, so it's going to come in like that. Then we know the bend is 90 degrees, so it's just going to come in here. And then again, keeping it flat, and then all we're going to do is we're going to bend that one up. So then that gives us our 90-degree bend in it like that. Put it in the hill. There it is. And again, slightly gone a little bit too long, but that's not a problem because we want it to come down to the inside. So for the moment, I'm just going to get the length about right. So we want it to go about there. All right, and then we grab our bolt cutters here, basically. All right, and then roughly, not perfectly to the size, we're just going to roughly do it. So we'd rather be too long than we want to be too short. So we just need a little nip off the end there. So we're just going to take a little clip off the end. Now, there. Okay, and we can re-check this one. So this one goes in the front, and it's going to come in the back, and that's a good length now coming across, but it's a little bit too long. So what we're going to do is we're just going to nip a little bit off the front. So we're probably going to take about 2 mil off the front. And again, plastic's left on there, so we just cut the plastic off. All right, and then what we can do is we can sit this one down, and there we go. It's going to sit, maybe just a little bit more actually. Let's nip another couple of mil off, about 2 mil. Again, and then we just pop that back down into the hole. And this one, there we go, because that's how we want it to go. Alright, so again, just need it to sort of come down in here just a little bit, and it's going to fit, there we go, just across and in, just like this. It probably could do with, to be honest, a tiny bit off of here, but what I'm going to do is drill a small hole in there for this to fit in there a little bit better, because to be honest with you, there isn't much of a hole for this one to sit in. It needs opening up just a little bit, just to get this one in here a little bit better. All right, but basically you get the idea. You can make and bend quite complex shapes. The only trouble is when we want to use the slightly bigger scale ones, and again we've got various ones down in here. This is quite a big meaty one, sorry, this one here just across. To try and bend it is a little bit of a problem, purely because of its actual size, that it doesn't like. The other bit, sorry, bits everywhere here, just clear a little bit out of the way. So what we want to do is, I'm just going to pull this one off and just check our skies. So yeah, it is this one. So this particular one on the underside, it actually needs to bend and move around. So what we can do is, we can actually take some of the cord stuff, but obviously we can't put it in this size tube because it's too small. We can the bigger ones, but for the moment this one's just a little bit too small to do it. So what we will do is just get another piece like this. So just to show you, if we were trying to bend this, we could do it with heat, but you're going to get pinch marks and you get this sort of pinching effect, and that's not really what we want. We want it to be off. Chances are we will get a little bit of pinch marking, but if we come along and we just cut the plastic off of this, just go a little bit further back. All right, and then decore it like this. Again, this comes in here now, and then hopefully this will fit nicely into the sleeve, just like this. So that goes in there now. So this now part of it is actually going to be posable and bending. So if we do the underside, just down in here, the ones on this side, they actually have an angle and it bends up and goes into. So again, we'll just borrow these for the moment. So it comes in like this. So we're just going to give it a 90-degree bend. And now as you can see, it will do it and hold it, and it's not pinched it. It's a nice proper bend on there. So that's quite nice. And then we just need to come down in here. I think it's, how high is it? About that high. And then we're just going to come in here. And then we can check its height as it comes across. That's probably going to be workable. All right, and then this one is going to come along and it's going to go down underneath the other one. So because there's no metal in this, I hope there's no metal, there we go, we can just cut it like this now, and then we can come along with these and we can actually fit them in to how they're going to go down in there, just like that. So again, you've got a nice situation, or it would be if I had it slightly around the right way, like that. And we can put those in, well, you get the idea when it's glued and all the rest of it, that it'll fit in there, underneath there, just like that. All right, and then it'll hold in there and go. So that's how we bend the thicker stuff. And again, if you're using even bigger pipe, and for instance, I've just got another one here, this is even bigger stuff, you can see the core's even bigger. So then you can come in and put, again, another bit of metal down into there, and that makes this one bendable and posable and everything like that. It's actually not a bad job. It doesn't take as long as you'd think. You've probably just seen there. So I'm thinking it's not going to take too long to run around and do all of these and get this all together. And then once it is all done, what we'll do is we can take them off, paint them individually, because again, they're like a titanium colour. So we'll paint those into like either a dark metal or a dark titanium colour, put those on, let them dry, and then come back and then just glue them then all in place. So we're not getting paint everywhere all over the model. And again, there's a lot of it that goes around the neck area, which all the sort of piping, everything always tends to go forward into that forward cockpit. So then what we'll do is we'll properly glue that in place and then put it in so it can't move. So obviously we don't distract or obviously detach any of the pipe work and things like that that's coming apart. So anyway, leave that with me. I'm going to crack on playing Mr. Plumber, get all of this together, get it all in there, and then we'll come back and we'll see how we got on.